We only have one shot. The 80 years of freedom that both our countries have enjoyed are no guarantee for future freedom. We have to achieve peace through strength, through resilience, and through partnerships. And let me start with the third one, with partnerships. During the Second World War, American soldiers crossed an ocean to help Europeans in our fight for freedom. NATO was established in 1949 to prevent future wars through unified strength. And nowadays, when we walk towards the entrance of the NATO headquarters, we pass a large piece of the Berlin Wall on the left side. It's a symbol of the end of the Cold War. To the right side, we see a twisted and mangled piece of steel from the Twin Towers, which is a reminding of 9/11 and a reminder of the impact of terrorism. It's also a reminder of our American allies asking for our help, and a reminder to European allies answering that call. It's also a reminder of the many soldiers who served in Afghanistan. And for me, particularly, a reminder of the 25 Dutch soldiers who lost their lives in Afghanistan. I cannot help but wonder what relics of war will come to stand next to these 5 to 10 years from now. Will it be a piece of concrete from an apartment building in Kharkiv? Will it be a section of an internet cable from the North Sea? It's impossible to predict. But what I do already know is that our actions in these coming days and coming weeks will be crucial in shaping the next 5 to 10 years. And I applaud the fact that France is showing strong leadership, together with the United Kingdom, as we discuss what we could deliver in terms of security guarantees to Ukraine. I also want to express my gratitude to President Macron's invitation to all EU chiefs of defense. Europe is at the crossroads, and France is stepping up to make sure that we move in the right direction. And we need to keep supporting Ukraine so that citizens can enjoy a just and a lasting peace. President Zelensky should not have to agree to a deal that would result in some sort of interbellum, with aggression constantly looming on the horizon. He needs to negotiate from a position of strength. And allow me to elaborate a bit on how I see peace through strength. Europe can be stronger than we sometimes think. We should not downplay our relevance in the current geopolitical reshuffle of power. Europe can be a force to be reckoned with, economically, morally, culturally, but also militarily. Let's not be too modest about that. The European Union has 27 member states, each with different cultures and histories. And yet we all choose to go in the same direction. Combined, we spend more on financial, military and humanitarian aid for Ukraine than the United States. And we have strong partners who join us in this direction, for example, the United Kingdom and Norway. Almost 450 million people live in the European Union, and around 140 million live in Russia. Our combined GDP is 5 times bigger than Russia's. The President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, recently proposed to spend 800 billion in defense investments over the next decade. We have to get over our inferiority complex. We are more powerful than we think, and we will need that power for our security. Putin has made very clear that Ukraine is not his final stop on his campaign to the imperial past. He will continue his aggressive efforts to increase the influence and the territory of the Russian Empire, towards his dream to re-establish a Ruski Mir, or a Russian world. It's a dream for Putin, and it's a nightmare for the rest of Europe. It's time we let Putin wake up to the fact that his dreams do not match reality. He thought he would take over Ukraine in 3 days. 3 years later, he is nowhere near that goal. And with the current speed of progress, it will take him 300 years to take over Ukraine. Putin might claim that he is the voice of the people. But after his invasion, his large-scale invasion of Ukraine, almost 1 million Russians fled their home country. It's a resounding message of no confidence. And the rest of Putin's citizens don't want to fight this war either. He has to bring in soldiers from North Korea. And on top of that, Russia's economy is running dry. And while he had hoped to divide Europe, we have built bridges faster, stronger, and more expensive than ever. Together, we support Ukraine in the fight for freedom, so they can live in an open democracy under the rule of law and with freedom of expression. Putin is afraid of these values and these principles. So afraid that he is jailing his opponents, hiding them away in work camps, or silencing them in other ways. But no matter how brutal this war has become, Ukrainians cannot be silenced. They can be forced into submission. Ukrainians are fighting at the front line of our freedom and security against Russian tyranny and aggression. It's the front line of the freedom and security of Europe, and therefore of France and the Netherlands. That's why our support to Ukraine needs to be unwavering. The Netherlands has allocated over 10.5 billion in military support to Ukraine. And we announced last week that we will be adding another 3.5 billion for 2026. We will not let Ukraine down. On the contrary, we will accelerate our support. Together we will keep standing, and we will do this together. We have done this in the past. In the Second World War, France and the Netherlands fought side by side. Last June, our king commemorated the D-Day landings in Normandy alongside President Macron. You all know how intense the battles these battles were following the landings in Normandy. So many of our soldiers made the ultimate sacrifice. French and Dutch soldiers fought and died side by side on numerous battlefields, united by a shared goal: to liberate Europe from tyranny. And to this day, we are grateful for the French contribution to the freedom in the Netherlands. The hard-fought victory ultimately led to a free Europe. It was a price, a heavy price, that was paid in blood, and many soldiers never returned home. It was the price of freedom, the freedom that we enjoy until this very day. France and the Netherlands were both part of the group of visionary countries that laid the groundwork for our European security architecture. The most well-known visionary, Robert Schuman, had fought in the Second World War himself. The EU and NATO were born out of a desire for lasting peace on the basis of our common values. And in modern times too, the Netherlands has stood side by side with France to defend our common values. On the eastern flank, our forces are now operating under French command in Romania. We serve together in numerous other conflict zones to defend freedom and democracy against terrorism. And let's not forget the Balkans, and Kosovo in particular. We also continue to defend freedom of trade, for example in the Red Sea within the European operations Aspides. And we represent the freedom of navigation in the Taiwan Strait. But these times call for an even greater effort. And we must all rise to the occasion. We cannot allow aggression and imperialism to prevail, and for freedom and democracy to lose. As I said, the goal in Ukraine is peace through strength. But meanwhile, Putin's army could be knocking on our doors on other fronts. Whether it's in the Baltic states, in Moldova, or in Georgia. Already, Putin is setting the stage for new invasions. Our military intelligence agency has estimated that it would take Russia only a year to move around a significant number of troops. So imagine that 1 year after a peace deal or a ceasefire in Ukraine, Russia would be moving around hundreds of thousands of its troops to the border with the Baltic states. For example, then holding a large military exercise there. And we know from our experience with Ukraine that we only know 1 week in advance whether it's just an exercise or the preparations for a large-scale attack. We should be prepared for this scenario and reinforce our deterrence. At this very day, both we in the Netherlands and in France, we do not live in war, but we do not live in peace either. We are living in a gray zone between war and peace. Both our countries experience daily cyber attacks on our hospitals, on our universities, and on our police stations. We experience espionage and preparations of sabotage, with Russian ships mapping our wind parks and undersea internet cables. Russian trolls flood the internet with lies and disinformation. We may not be at war with Russia, but Russia is at war with us, a hybrid war. And we know that a hybrid car, at the end of the day, is a car. The same is true for a hybrid war. So we should be able and capable of defending ourselves in both a hybrid war and a kinetic one. But the responsibility for a secure Europe rests not only on the shoulders of our men and women in uniform. Defense is a key piece of the puzzle, but not the only one. Society and the industry are the other pieces. And that leads me to peace through resilience. Just increasing our defense spending is not enough. Defending our freedom and democracy is a task for society as a whole. We will have to be more resilient to the disruptive effects of modern-day threats, such as internet disruptions, power failures, and our drinking and water systems being hacked. This includes becoming more self-reliant in those first hours of crisis and maybe even the first days of a crisis. That's true for individual households, but also for companies and other organizations. It's not only a practical matter, there's also a mental aspect. Civilians need to be able to respond to any crisis with perseverance, not with panic. And meanwhile, at the government level, we must adapt legislation to be fit for purpose, not only in times of peace and war, but also in the grey zone. And to be able to reinforce our resilience and to grow our militaries, to have civilians and military work side by side, and to be able to speed up our processes, we should take away any legislations that are standing in our way. Legislations that are currently standing in the way of growing our military. We should do this both on a national and on a European level. In the Netherlands, some EU environmental legislation prevents the military from doing exercises and from expanding our military bases. And of course, the environment is important and it should be protected. But Putin won't be deterred by a sign that is warning him that he is about to enter a nature reserve. And also the EU should cut red tape that is preventing us from going faster, from procuring faster, and for being better and faster than our adversaries. Legislative exemptions for defense must be made across the board in order for our militaries to grow and for our militaries to be ready. And in order to achieve that, we call for a European Defence Readiness Act. In addition, we need to rapidly increase our military production. Europe has already taken steps in the right direction, but much more needs to be done. We have united ourselves in supporting Ukraine and in creating funds for defense spending. Our industry is picking up. In just 3 years, the Dutch defense industry has nearly doubled from revenues of 4.7 billion in 2021 to 9.3 billion in 2024. And with around 900 defense companies, we are a substantial player in Europe. And we are working together with Ukraine to develop the most advanced weapon systems, such as the newest types of drones. But I must say, I very much admire France's strong defense industry. You are one of the key players in Europe. Minister Lecornu, during your New Year's address, you mentioned with understandable pride that in 2024, the French defense industry exported goods to a value of around 18 billion euros. And a substantial part of that spending, I believe, came from the Netherlands. It speaks to our ties, our friendship, and the way that we view France as a strategic partner, now and in the future. Your impressive strategic autonomy in terms of a defense industrial basis is clearly paying off. And we are looking forward to seeing our submarines being built by Naval Group in close cooperation with Dutch suppliers. The helicopters for our special forces, the Caracals, are manufactured here in France too. And our vessels for mine countermeasures are also being built here in Bretagne. Let's make sure that we do what is necessary to massively ramp up our military production in Europe. Because despite all our efforts, it still is not enough. We see that prices and delivery times are going up, while volume should go up. We need to aggregate our demand, turn this into long-term contracts for the industry, and take away any barriers that are delaying production. And sometimes this means that we all need to transcend our national interest. If we make sure that we grow the European pie, then I'm sure that all 27 countries in the EU will have a piece that is much larger than we have right now, with more jobs, with more revenues, and with more innovation. We need to invest and innovate in all domains, including space. In this domain, we are witnessing many instances of Mashkirovka, which is Russian military deception. We see spoofing, jamming, accidental explosions, and collisions. It's clear that while we would like to see a free space, and we would like to see others also adhering to that principle, our adversaries and our enemies increasingly and blatantly violate it. We need to take a giant leap in this domain to strengthen our military capabilities, to reinforce our defense, and to increase our resilience. And France, as a leader in space exploration and technology, can play a key role in this effort. We see that innovation in the space domain is now a game changer for Ukraine. And now in Europe, we also need to step up our game. Because Europe should strive for more open strategic autonomy, in all domains. It's up to us to show our friends and foes that we are willing to fight for our values. A strong Europe is the only guarantee of peace on our continent. And of course, the US remains an essential ally. But we cannot assume that the US will support us as they have done over the last decades. We have to take action as a united Europe now. Our strengths combined can make a difference. I want to applaud France's effort for a free and strong Europe. You've always been forward-leaning, you dare to be bold, and you dare to be courageous. Ladies and gentlemen, while we are standing at these crossroads, we need to take the right path towards a lasting peace, so that our 80 years of freedom can be extended to 100 years and many years more, for generations to come. We need to achieve peace through strength, peace through resilience, and peace through partnerships. And I'm glad that the Netherlands and France are working as close friends and close allies. Our national motto is, coincidentally, in French, Je maintiendrai. I will uphold. Every Dutch person has this on his or her passport. Many Dutch servicemen and women wear this on their arm. To me, it's a reminder that we need to uphold the values and the principles we hold so dear. Freedom, open democracy, sovereignty, and the rule of law. In other words, nous maintiendrons. Merci.
Après l'allocution des deux ministres néerlandais et français de la Défense et des Armées, on va entrer dans le vif du sujet avec, pour thème de la première table ronde, quelle coopération entre la France et les Pays-Bas en matière de défense, avec Alice Ruffo, elle est directrice générale des relations internationales et de la stratégie à la DGRIS, et avec son homologue néerlandais, Koen Davids. A tout de suite, rendez-vous direction Amphi de l'Or.